Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think Sura 22 verse 15. Whoever thinks that Allah will not help his prophet in this world and the hereafter, let them stretch out a rope to the ceiling and strangle themselves. Then let them see if this plan will do away with the cause of their rage. I just think this is such a powerful, like symbolic, picturesque ayah. Makes you imagine, because your imagination, your mind is the factory that creates not just words but images. And certainly this particular ayah right here, it invokes powerful images. So, imagine a man in a small room of his own making. Walls wallpapered with worry. Windows fogged by frustration. He thinks the help of Allah will not arrive for him. He thinks mercy has missed his address. And he gathers his anger like cordage and braids his bitterness into a rope and then throws it towards the ceiling of his limits, as if he could lasso the sky. Just imagine this. That's kind of the image that it's invoked in my poetic soul from reading 22:15. Whoever imagines that Allah will not aid, let him stretch a rope to the ceiling, then cut it, and see if his scheme will silence his anger. It's really a parable that stings like clean air in a tired lung, or in tired lungs. Sometimes when you're just out of breath and you're just so tired, man, and try to take a gulp of that here, just poof. You have to take it in sips. It's not a call for us to harm ourselves, because a lot of people see this and say, is the Quran suggesting that we commit suicide? To strangle ourselves with a rope? It's a call to humble the ego. It mocks our tantrums with a simple mirror. Does your storm change the sea? Does your storm change the sea? Does your outbursts, or only churns your cup? What does it do? The rope is really like our reach, the restless run of our hearts when fate feels delayed. The ceiling, think about what the ceiling is. The ceiling is our creaturely constraints, the thing that limits us, where we can't go no further, the line where our ladder of logic and leverage ends. The cutting is the crisis, the moment we snap. And all of us have had those moments that we've come to where, like Musa said, I ran out of cheeks. I couldn't take no more hits. They just been beating me. I've been turning to the right and turning to the left. They just kept on beating me. And I got to a point where, listen, snap, you're gonna snap. Convinced that control is our savior. And I mean that just not having the ability to decide for ourselves. So now we want to have back the control. And we think that is our savior, and that whatever schemes we come up with, whatever ways that we decide to go about the situation is our salvation. But the parable, which is what it is, and it poses a piercing question. If you sever your patience, like Sister Nori just alluded to, if you sever your patience, if you slice your trust, will the scream in your chest suddenly soften? Will the pain dissipate and go away? Will providence pivot because you pulled at the plaster of your own ceiling? It's a satire if you can see it. A man furious at rain shakes his fist at the clouds. What's that gonna do? A sailor mad at the tide kicks the keel, right? The anger at the decree does not rewrite the decree. Just because you don't like what Allah has said, Does that happen? A lot of times they'd get a decree, fighting is prescribed for you. And some people, the first day they was begging for it. When are we gonna get it? When are we gonna, when's the Surah gonna be revealed for us to fight? And because they thought the prophet was a coward. Right? That's what they thought. We just keep on taking blows, and we have to run, and we have to leave our homes, and we have to go to another country, and we get mistreated, and we end up in this place now. As when we were rich in Mecca, now we here poor, sleeping on somebody else's floor. When is the Surah gonna come down for us to fight? Because maybe you scared, but I'm not scared. And as soon as the Surah came down for fight, the same people who was begging for it, they started begging for excuses not to go to the fight. So anger at the decree does not rewrite the decree. It only writes wrinkles into your soul. The verse basically unveils the futility of fury against Allah's will. Right? You can string a rope of reasons to the rafters of your intellect. Some of us are very smart. You can knot 1,000 theories around your throat of pride, but you cannot choke the truth. That help comes from the high, not from the heat of our hurry. That's where help comes from. It don't come because you're so, passionate and in a haste. It comes from the Most High. Now, flip the image and hear the healing inside of this, like this whole allegory, or the symbolism inside of this ayah. If the rope you throw is trust, if the ceiling you press is, let's say, pride, if the cutting you do is cutting away sorrow, despair, then the picture that you're looking at now, it becomes a pathway. So what you're basically doing is you're tying your hope to heaven, not to your habits, not to the fact that listen, man, leave me alone before I get mad. I get mad if you keep on prodding me. You know what could happen. I'll cut you off. This what it's what I'm known for. I'm known for disappearing as soon as somebody says something I don't like. I just block people and I disappear. But if you tie your hope to Allah, to heaven, instead of your habit, you may end up with a different outcome. You hit your heart to the truth, not to hype. You sever the strings of your cynicism and slice through the sinews of what you feel like, your self-sufficiency. Feel like you don't need nobody else. You can do everything on your own, And that self-sufficiency is not a bad thing, but it can become a bad thing, because it can strangle your serenity, can strangle your peace. The only choking here is the choking out of arrogance. The throttling, of that inner voice that says, I must control what only Allah can command. You're not in control. It becomes a test for you. So this is a mercy message for the impatient and the injured, the people who feel wronged. When the night will not quickly become dawn. Because, we don't want to stay in a situation where we have to reflect too long. You may be sick. You may have lost your job. Something bad may have happened, recently or previously. Some old thing has flared back up. And it makes you feel like you're under a dark cloud and you're going through this night that you want to end quickly. But when the night does not quickly become the dawn, right? When we begin to bargain with our belief, maybe help won't come, you start to think. Maybe, God has forgotten me. But the verse replies with a deer wrapped in wisdom, right? Run your experiment. Rage. Go ahead. Rage. Resist. Rattle the rafters. of your room. You know, clean the whole table of all of the stuff on it. Punch holes into the wall. Block everybody in your phone. Tell yourself that, you know, you don't need nobody. You know, go kick rocks. Right? Rage. And watch how nothing in the cosmos will capitulate. It won't capitulate you. The sun keeps its circuit. It's not going to stop shining. And I always say that to people. You know, what can they do? You can't pay this bill. What's going to do? They're going to turn off the sun? They're going to turn off the air? Okay, you can't pay the bill. So what? You ready to kill yourself over that? The sea keeps its swell. Your pulse quickens. Your problems remain. Then come the rope. You drop the rope of rage and you pick up the rope of remembrance. Allah is sufficient, brothers and sisters. Allah is sufficient, and what a superb trustee He is. So, symbol by symbol, the scene is teaching us the rope is reliance. Remember, hold on to the rope, like Sister Yasmin always says. Hold on to the rope of Allah. The ceiling is limit, but you can turn it into a mihrab. The cutting is crisis, convert it into consecration. When you feel your fury flare, ask, am I trying to strangle the sky or steady my soul? Am I crafting a noose of negativity or a lifeline of nearness? The heart was not built to bully the universe. It was built to bow. When bows become sujud, guess what ceilings become? Ceilings become skies. And here's the sober secret. Support from Allah often arrives underneath, not above. As patience pushing from within, as clarity cooling our confusion, as small doors opening where large gates stayed shut. Right? Nasr is not always the trumpet at noon. Sometimes it's the whisper at dawn that says continue, continue, continue. Sometimes it's not a change in the chessboard, but a change in the chess. Your courage grows. Your greed starts to shrink. Your grief kneels and becomes gratitude. Help is not always fireworks. Often it's a fresh will to work with worship woven through it. So it's something that we have to practice. We practice the reversal. When panic proposes a rope of rashness, braid it instead into a cord of dhikr. When your ceiling feels low, raise the roof with ruku. When anger argues that Allah has abandoned you, answer with evidence. You are still breathing borrowed air, blinking borrowed light, beating with a borrowed heart. You are a walking warehouse of favors. And how can the owner who stocked you forget you? So let this verse be a mirror, not a mockery. It laughs really at our futility to lead us back to fidelity. If your plan is to pressure providence, your plot will perish. It's not going to work. But if your plan is to position your pulse in prostration, your portion will be poured. Sometimes slow as sap, sometimes sudden as spring, but always suited to the soul that surrenders. So tie your tomorrow to a tawakkul. Cut the cords that choke your calm, and when the room of your life feels too tight, remember the ceiling of the servant is the floor of the prayer. Bow, and you already are beneath a bigger sky. Just bow. Take it to the rub. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
That was so enlightening. That was powerful.
Alhamdulillah. Allahu Akbar. Wonderful, brother. Thank you for that.
Mercy.